We'll now go to Mr. Johns.
Yeah, thank you again for being here. And one thing that really struck me, Mr. Giroux, when you talked about to create more efficiencies so we could be and lower our costs would be to build more ships, and the amount of knowledge that's lost, the efficiencies that are lost. Now, I'm just thinking, in terms of a capacity perspective. I was at the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Conference, and they cited that dry dock space was pretty much at capacity in Canada, that there was $3 billion in refits that were going to be needed to be done each year. The government still doesn't have a program to develop dry dock space. And I live in a community on the west coast of Vancouver Island, Courtenay-Alberni. It's the only deep sea port on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And they want to build a dry dock, but the government has no program to develop dry docks, to fund the development of dry docks. Do you see that in terms of an upstream cost benefit of more dry dock space and more shipbuilding capacity, that it would help overall in terms of lowering the costs of development and building of ships in Canada?
Well, that's a good question, but I think the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans would be in a much better position than me to answer that question, given that she has at her disposal probably hundreds of officials who are much better at explaining these issues, the shipyard issues and the capacity issues of the industry in the country.
I think just from a costing perspective, though, when you're looking at comparisons, you can see other countries where, they've been able to create more dry dock capacity, more shipbuilding capacity. I think about Scandinavia and Norway, certainly as an example, where they're comparative. And right now, our country, we actually removed a tariff, a 25% tariff to build ferries in Canada. So here, BC Ferries is an prime example where they're doing refits and they're doing building of ships outside of the country. Do you think that a tariff like that would help benefit shipbuilding capacity in Canada if that money directly went to capacity development?
Well, again, I cannot speak specifically to the issue of dry docks, but one thing is clear is when we look at costs around the world for major ship procurements, be they Coast Guard or National Defense, there's a direct link between the capacity of a country to build ships on a large scale and the unit cost of these ships. For example, France seems to be very efficient. The US is also a very good example. Italy seems to be doing quite well too. And Denmark had cost estimates that were quite low for its equivalent to the Canadian surface combatants. So there is clearly a link between the domestic capacity. The higher it is, the lower the costs seem to be, but I'm not sure if it's directly related to capacity or the actual building. It's probably the actual building of ships that decreases the costs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johns.